Now to the double murder in Wilson County. We're learning the suspect is charged with killing his own brother and his mother. Police identifying the victims as 50-year-old Dana Jenkins and her 15-year-old son, Darren Cox. Jenkins' 25-year-old son, Darian Jenkins, is now charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The victims were found inside a home yesterday evening on...
He stabbed his mother over and over, so many times they could hardly count. Then he turned the knife on his 15-year-old brother, the one who used to make him laugh. There. Bodies were found in the same home that had once been filled with prayers, birthday cakes, and second chances. And the person responsible? The same son Dana Jenkins had. Welcomed home just 6 days earlier with open arms, a homemade banner, and the words, "This is our new beginning." But she didn't know. She couldn't have known that her love would be the very thing that killed her. Before her name appeared in news articles and memorials, Dana Jenkins was just an ordinary woman living her life in Wilson, North Carolina. She was the kind of person who made everyone feel at home. Her smile could light up a room, and her kindness touched everyone she met. Dana worked hard at her job, was deeply involved in her church, and still found time to help others. She'd check on neighbors, give people rides, drop off home-cooked meals, or just listen when someone needed to talk. Before we proceed, if you're new here, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. And if you're returning, please leave a thumbs up for us. Your engagement encourages us. Dana didn't just talk about her faith, she lived it every day. Friends and family described her as a blessing, someone who remembered your birthday, asked about your family, and truly cared. She had a heart full of love and believed everyone deserved a second chance. Dana poured that love into raising her 2 sons, Darren and Darian, giving them everything she had, even when life got tough. Her youngest, Darian, was her pride and joy. At 15, he was always by her side, making her laugh in the grocery store or staying late after church to help her tidy up. Their bond was unbreakable, filled with quiet moments of love that didn't need words. Her older son, Darren, had a harder path. He got into trouble with the law and ended up in prison, which broke Dana's heart. But she never stopped believing in him. She wrote him letters, visited him, and prayed every day that he'd find his way back to the boy she raised. Dana saw the good in everyone. She didn't believe in giving up on people, no matter how far they'd fallen. She held on to hope that her love could bring her son back, that it could heal the wounds the world had left. But even the strongest faith can't always see what's coming. Sometimes, the greatest danger is already waiting behind a closed door. Dana's unshakable hope in her son became her biggest weakness. She loved both her boys with all her heart, but they were on a collision course that no one could have predicted. If Dana was the heartbeat of her family, her youngest son, Darian, was its light. At just 15 years old, Darian had a way of drawing people in. His teachers at Bedingfield High School said he could brighten any classroom with his warm smile and kind heart. His classmates loved how he was always there to help, always ready to make someone laugh or feel included. He didn't need to be loud or showy. His quiet confidence and genuine care made him special. Darian was a star student, earning honor roll grades and showing leadership that made people believe he was destined for great things. At Mount Moriah Community Church, he wasn't just a kid in the pews. He ran the media team, helped with youth events, and even played music during services. Adults would look at him and say, "That boy's been raised right." And he truly was. Darian and his mom, Dana, shared a bond that went beyond mother and son. They were partners in life, cooking meals together, laughing over little things, praying side by side. Friends teased that they were more like best friends than anything else. There was no teenage attitude, no arguments, just pure love. When Dana talked about Darian, her whole face glowed with pride. She'd say he was her reason to keep going, no matter how tough life got. You could see their love in every photo, the way Darian leaned close to her, the way she looked at him with pure joy. They were each other's everything. That's why what happened next is so heartbreaking. Darian wasn't just caught in the tragedy that was coming. He was trapped in the middle of his mother's hope and his brother's darkness, a bright future snuffed out in a moment. It all started when Dana's older son, Darren, came home. For years, Dana had counted down the days until Darren's release from prison. She saw it as a fresh start, a chance to rebuild their family. She scrubbed the house spotless, cooked his favorite meal, and told everyone who would listen, "This is our second chance." When she picked him up from the correctional facility, she wrapped him in a hug, tears streaming down her face. To Dana, this was God answering her prayers, a new beginning after years of pain. She believed Darren had learned from his mistakes and was ready to change. But the man who stepped back into her home wasn't the boy she'd raised. Darren had spent 3 years in prison for breaking into homes and stealing guns. His troubles started young. At 19, he was caught stealing from cars in a church parking lot. By 21, he'd broken into a neighbor's house and taken 3 firearms. In prison, he didn't turn things around. He got into fights, threatened staff, and caused enough trouble to be written up multiple times. He was denied parole twice because of his behavior. His release wasn't because he'd earned it, it was just a matter of time running out on his sentence. But Dana didn't focus on any of that. She still believed in him, still hoped. When Darren stepped onto the porch of the house on Snowden Drive, a colorful handmade banner greeted him with the words, "Welcome home." Bright balloons bobbed on the railing, and family members gathered, buzzing with excitement. In photos from that day, Dana's face glowed with happiness as she stood next to her son, her arm wrapped tightly around his waist. She looked like a woman whose prayers had finally been answered. But if you look closely at those pictures, something unsettling stands out. While everyone else smiled, Darren's face was blank, his eyes empty, almost cold. He stared into the camera like he wasn't really there. That strange feeling wasn't just in the photos, it was in the air. Family, neighbors, and friends all noticed it. Something about Darren felt wrong. His eyes didn't seem right, his body was stiff, and the way he moved was off. Dana's cousin Juanita later said, "You could just tell he was up to something bad." Another relative described him as looking like he'd just walked out of a war, or maybe like he was still fighting one in his head. The party was full of love and
you can just see he was so fidgetive. He was so anxious. He could not stay still. He had that sneakiness about him. You know what I mean? Like a crazy person trying to get ready to do something, like premeditation.
Police took
hope, but the danger was already inside the house, hiding in plain sight. In the days after Darren's return, the mood in the house on Snowden Drive started to change. The joy that had filled the air began to feel forced, like everyone was trying too hard to keep the celebration going. The warmth that Dana brought to everything started to fade, replaced by a growing unease. Those who were paying attention, family members, close friends, started to worry. At first, the signs were small but hard to ignore. Darren barely talked. He'd wander the house late at night, pacing back and forth, opening and closing doors, checking windows over and over. Sometimes he'd mumble words no one could make out, his voice low and strange. He'd stand in the yard for hours, staring at nothing, completely still. Other times, he'd stop, mid-conversation, his eyes going blank like he was lost in another world. Then he'd snap out of it, mutter, "I'm fine," and walk away. He seemed nervous, jumpy, like something was eating at him. Family members said he was restless, like a bomb ready to go off. One night, someone found him standing silently in the hallway outside a bedroom, just watching the door, not moving. No one knew what was going through his mind, but everyone could feel something was very wrong. Then there was the injury. One morning, Darren showed up with his hand wrapped in a clumsy bandage. When someone asked what happened, he just shrugged, saying nothing. That silence spoke louder than any explanation could. But no one pushed him for answers. No one wanted to upset Dana, who was so overjoyed to have her son home. She was full of hope, certain that Darren was ready to start fresh. Nobody wanted to break her heart by questioning him, not after she'd waited so long for this moment. So, they stayed quiet, even when Darren asked Dana for $200, saying he needed it for some things. Without a second thought, Dana gave him the money. That's what a mother does, right? She trusts her child. But later, police would discover that Darren used that cash to buy bleach, duct tape, and a hunting knife. The receipt was dated just days before the murders. Deep down, people saw the warning signs. They felt the danger in their gut. But, out of love for Dana and loyalty to her hope, they kept silent. One cousin later confessed, "I was afraid this day would come. You could see something wasn't right with him, but no one said anything. Nobody stepped in to stop what was coming." Dana believed so strongly in giving her son a second chance, and everyone else was too afraid to shatter her hope. They didn't want to be the ones to break her heart. In the end, that silence cost everything. It was Monday, March 31st, 2025, just an ordinary day in Wilson, North Carolina, until it turned into a nightmare. At 5:30 p.m., a shaky, confused voice called Wilson County Emergency Dispatch. The caller couldn't clearly explain what was wrong, only that something terrible had happened. The dispatcher sensed the urgency and sent police to the house on Snowden Drive, the same quiet street where, just 6 days earlier, a bright, "Welcome Home" banner had hung proudly on Dana's porch. When the officers arrived, everything outside looked normal. Dana's car sat in the driveway. The porch light glowed softly. There were no broken windows, no signs of a break-in, no screams echoing from inside. But the silence felt heavy, wrong. The front door wouldn't budge. When the police finally got inside, what they saw would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Inside the house, 50-year-old Dana Jenkins and her 15-year-old son, Darian Cox, were dead. Both had been stabbed over and over in a brutal, vicious attack. Investigators later said it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment crime. It was filled with rage, carefully planned, and carried out with terrifying precision. Dana, the mother who believed so fiercely in love and second chances, was found near the front of the house. Her body showed the worst of the violence, as if she'd faced the full force of the attacker's anger. Darian, her youngest, her pride and joy, was found deeper inside, like he'd tried to run or hide but couldn't escape. The scene was so horrific that even experienced officers were shaken. One later said it was the kind of thing you'd expect in a war zone, not in a cozy family home. Then came the detail that made it even more chilling. Darren Jenkins, Dana's 25-year-old son, the one she'd welcomed home with open arms, was still there. He didn't try to flee or fight. He didn't show fear or guilt. He was eerily calm. When police took him into custody, he went quietly, without a struggle, his face blank, showing no emotion at all. Within hours, the Wilson Police Department announced that Darren had been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for killing his mother and brother. He was taken to the Wilson County Jail, held without bond. Just 6 days before, Dana had posted on Facebook, thanking God for bringing her son home. Now, the entire community was left reeling, asking how God could let that same son take her life. The news of the double murder spread through Wilson like a spark in dry grass. People were stunned, unable to believe it at first. That disbelief quickly turned to deep sadness, and then to a question no one could answer. How could this happen? How could a home filled with faith, love, and the joy of a family reunited become a crime scene? In just 6 days, Dana's happiness had turned into Wilson's worst nightmare. Behind every candlelit vigil, every tear, and every prayer, there was a growing fear. If this could happen to someone as kind and faithful as Dana Jenkins, it could happen to anyone. The murders of Dana and her son Darian didn't just destroy a family, they broke the heart of an entire town. Word traveled fast in Wilson. A beloved mother and her teenage son were gone, not because of an accident or illness, but because of a violent betrayal that was hard to even imagine. People kept saying it out loud, hoping it would make sense. He killed his own mom, and Darian too. The shock was like a thick fog hanging over the town. Neighbors stood together outside the yellow police tape, holding each other, too overwhelmed to speak. It was too much to process, too cruel, too close to home. At Mount Moriah Community Church, where Dana and Darian had worshipped, the grief hit like a tidal wave. Bishop Sherman Blandon, who had prayed with Dana for years and watched Darian grow into a kind, talented young man, opened the church for an emergency prayer service the very next evening. The sanctuary was packed within minutes. People came in quietly, their faces blank with shock, searching for comfort or answers. Even Bishop Blandon, a man known for his strong faith, struggled to find words. Even as a man of faith, he said, his voice trembling, "I don't understand this. Some people cried openly while others sat in silence, holding photos of Dana and Darian, whispering prayers. Investigators believe Darren had a plan. If he had made the crime look like a random break-in, maybe by leaving the scene, creating confusion, or staging a robbery, he might have gotten away with it and claimed the money from Dana's life insurance. But was it really just about the money? Or was something darker eating away at Darren? Did he feel bitter after years of struggling while his younger brother thrived? Did he resent Dana for the way she raised Darian, showering him with open love and pride? When he looked at Darian, the smiling, church-going honor student, did he see everything he'd lost, everything he could never be? No one may ever truly know what was going on in Darren's mind during those final days. But the prosecutors were clear, the signs were there. The things he bought: bleach, duct tape, a hunting knife, his strange behavior, his silence, the way he seemed in control but distant. This wasn't a sudden outburst. It was a carefully planned murder, a betrayal so deep it left Wilson shattered and a family destroyed. As Darren's case heads to trial, one truth weighs heavily on everyone who loved Dana and Darian: no punishment will ever bring them back. Dana believed in second chances with all her heart. She believed in forgiveness, in redemption, in the idea that no one was too far gone to be saved. She thought love could reach even the darkest corners and pull someone back. We must never ignore the warning signs again. Thanks for reading this story. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay updated, like this post, follow for more, and turn on notifications. We share new true crime stories every day, covering cases you may know and others you haven't heard. Stay with us as we tell more stories that need to be heard. See you in the next one.